Hi everyone! From extremely endangered species to practically mythological creatures, here are 10 wolves you won't believe exist. Arctic wolf. The Arctic wolf is unbelievable in its adorableness. They look an awful lot like Arctic foxes, and they are some of the most elusive and non-threatened wolves in the world. They are one of the only animals in the world whose habitat is not currently being destroyed. This is because they live in Greenland and the Arctic regions of North America, and they are heavily isolated. Arctic wolves are also sometimes known as polar wolves or white wolves, and they can weigh up to an amazing 175 pounds, 8 kilograms. They can also be roughly 6 feet, 2 meters in length. If you were to stumble upon one of these wolves in the wild, probably you wouldn't even know. Their white coat lets them blend in with the snow just like a polar bear. One interesting fact is that they can eat more than 20 pounds, 9 kilograms of meat at once thanks to their sharp teeth and large jaws. Can you imagine eating this much meat in one meal? It's too much. Black timber wolf. There is nothing more terrifying than a giant black timber wolf with sharp fangs and red eyes. Black wolves are the most terrifying and most fearsome of any other species of wolf, and while they don't have red eyes, they are pretty intimidating. Nobody knows this more than a man who recently shot a video of what appears to be a black timber wolf chasing a dog through the forest. The timber wolf is completely black, covered in shaggy fur, and appears to be roughly 7 feet, 2 meters in length. The video is short, but you can clearly see this monstrous wolf leaping through the skinny trees of northern Saskatchewan in the wilds of the Canadian North. But this is not the only black timber wolf in the region. The north of Canada is home to hundreds and hundreds of these ferocious predators, and your dog would not stand a chance in a fight. Supposedly, the man who spotted this giant wolf did so through the window of his lodge. After his dog tried to chase the wolf away, the wolf took charge and threw the dog into the air by its back end. It was only after the man shot his shotgun into the air that the wolf turned and ran. As hard as it is to believe, these types of ferocious wolves do indeed prowl the wilderness. Don't you think that's terrifying? What would you do if a wolf this size was chasing you or your dog? Let me know in the comments below. Man-eating gray wolves. This is a pretty unbelievable story about some seriously ferocious wolves. In northern Saskatchewan, in the same region where the giant black wolf was spotted in our previous story, there have been packs of gray wolves getting bolder and bolder and going so far as to attack human prey. For anybody that doesn't know about the power of a gray wolf, an adult can easily bite through the thick bones of a moose just like a hyena might crunch through the bones of a dead animal. When it comes to biting into human flesh, gray wolves do not have a single issue. It's like us biting into an orange. Gray wolves are fast, they're predatory, and now they hold no fear of people. According to the National Post, in 2016, a gray wolf in Saskatchewan attacked a 26-year-old kitchen worker in the middle of the night near the Cigar Lake uranium mine. A security guard stumbled upon the scene, and had it not been for the bright lights of the security guard's vehicle, the worker very well could have died. And this is not the only incident of a wolf attacking a human in the same region. Other victims are not so lucky. In 2005, a university student was killed, and according to the forensic evidence, it was because of a wolf attack. Believe it or not, it seems that wolves are striking back. Sea wolves. You have heard of gray wolves, timber wolves, Arctic wolves, and even dire wolves. But have you heard of sea wolves? If you didn't know any better, you would never even believe sea wolves are real, but they are. National Geographic even did a segment on them. In a world of endangered species, wolves being hunted to the brink of endangerment and shrinking habitats, wolves have adapted to a life at sea. There is now a new breed of wolf who have started swimming and eating seafood. On the coast of British Columbia, there is a new group of wolves who are being referred to as sea wolves because of their bizarre adaptation to swimming between small coastal islands and hunting fish and other types of seafood rather than land animals. However, to catch their shellfish, these wolves must be incredibly competent swimmers, and that is exactly how they have adapted. They can swim for miles at a time, their longest swim being over 7 miles, 12 kilometers. The British Columbian coast is a perfect spot for these animals to roam, as it is incredibly isolated with roughly 21 million acres of undisturbed wilderness. In that quiet space, the sea wolves have been evolving. They are now genetically different from other species, and it is a bizarre sight to see these wolves hanging out on the beach, swimming in the ocean, and hunting seafood. It's straight up unbelievable. Northwestern wolf. Let's stop and take a minute to talk about one of the world's largest wolves. The northwestern wolf is an absolutely unbelievable animal. It is majestic, it is gorgeous, and it is massive. This wolf probably weighs the same as you or a little more. The northwestern wolf can grow to be roughly 170 pounds, 80 kilograms. They are typically found in western North America, ranging from Alaska, south through the western Canadian provinces, and all the way to the northwestern United States. They live in forests and mountains, and normally roam in a family group of between 6 and 12 wolves. They have excellent sight, stupendous hearing, and some of the best noses in the animal kingdom. They can reach a top speed of 40 miles an hour, 64 kilometers, which is definitely faster than you have of any hope of outrunning. But unless you are roaming in the wilderness, you are very unlikely to have a standoff with a northwestern wolf. They also go by Alaskan timber wolf, Canadian timber wolf, Mackenzie Valley wolf, and Rocky Mountain wolf. Now for number 5, but first, did you know that wolves are believed to have been first domesticated about 15,000 years ago? Let me know in the comments below. Yuki the wolf dog. Meet Yuki the wolf dog. 87.5% gray wolf, 8.6% Siberian husky, and 3.9% German shepherd. Yuki is an extremely unique animal, almost completely wolf with just a dash of a dog in his genes. Yuki became famous after photos of him at the Shy Wolf Animal Sanctuary were put online. Yuki is almost 15 years old now. He weighs around 120 pounds and is arguably the most famous wolf dog in the world. It's hard for anyone to believe how big this wolf and dog hybrid truly is. He eats about 40 pounds of raw meat in a week, he's extremely friendly, and he has a strange love for attention, specifically by the female volunteers who work at the animal shelter in Naples, Florida. Despite Yuki's huge size, he is not the dominant animal in his enclosure. He shares his cage with another wolf dog, a female named Bella. Bella is smaller and is the dominant animal in their enclosure. It's hard to believe that these two spectacular animals can be alive today, but it's all thanks to selective breeding and the kindness of volunteers at animal shelters. You won't find a wolf dog like Yuki roaming the wild, but his breed is actually getting more and more popular with specialized breeders. Before long, we may see lots of wolf dogs at the park. Canadian killer wolf. Another terrifying story of a wolf attack. Most people think about wolves as timid creatures who hunt in packs and stick to the shadows, but a New Jersey family just discovered how horribly wrong this misconception is. This was back in 2019. The couple from New Jersey were camping with their 2 sons in Banff National Park, Canada. They were in their tent when the absolutely unthinkable happened. A wolf literally tore open their tent, attacked the family, then tried to drag the man out of the tent into the night. According to the Calgary Herald, the man's wife had to grab him by the legs while the wolf was trying to drag him away. This is not your everyday camping trip, and this is one seriously unbelievable wolf. But don't be scared of your next trip to the Great White North. Being attacked by wolves is not an everyday occurrence. According to Parks Canada, the wolf was very likely in a deteriorating condition and nearing the end of its life, and was therefore desperate for food. Luckily, in this horror movie, nobody in the family was seriously injured. 06. For those who don't know, Yellowstone National Park over 10 years ago began trying to repopulate the park with wildlife, and more specifically with wolves. When the wolves were reintroduced into Yellowstone National Park, it sparked an explosion of other animals also returning to the park, including bald eagles and beavers. None of the wolves were more visible or more famous than 06, the alpha female of a pack of wolves in the park. She was first discovered by wolf watchers in 2009 as a lone wolf, but quickly established her territory and became incredibly famous. She even mated with several different males without ever settling down. But why was she special? Well, it's dangerous for wolves to roam alone when you're trying to establish territory. Most wolves end up going back to their home pack or being killed by rival packs, but she had a special ability to avoid trouble and was very adept at handling territorial rivalries. Unfortunately, in 2012, she was shot and killed by a trophy hunter. While it didn't happen inside the park as the wolf had been wandering at the time, it was not technically illegal. Nonetheless, this was a pretty tragic end to the park's famous resident, and it caused an international outcry just like when Cecil the lion was murdered in 2015. The Wolfman. Meet the incredible Wolfman. Marcos Rodriguez Pantoja was abandoned as a child and survived for 15 years in the wild while being raised by wolves. He may not be a genetic wolf, but that doesn't make him any less of an unbelievable creature. It happened in 1953, and as a child who was 7 years old, he was abandoned to fend for himself. He ended up being raised by wolves who protected him, sheltered him, and raised him like one of their own. This man lost the use of his language and fully transformed into a wolf, though not physically, barking, screeching, and howling. According to The Guardian, he was discovered 12 years later by police, hiding in the mountains. They found him wrapped in deerskin, his hair long and matted, and completely savage. The police had to catch him and bind his hands and then bring him to the nearest village. He was eventually brought to Madrid, where he was put through a type of rehab and received a remedial education from nuns at a monastery. The man is okay now, though he has not had a very pleasant time being human. For many years after being discovered in the wilderness, Rodriguez struggled with society and people took advantage of him. In 2010, Spanish director Gerardo Oliveras released a film, Entre Lobos, Among Wolves, based on Rodriguez's life in the mountains. Have you seen this famous movie? Tell me about it in the comments below. Dire wolves. Yes, dire wolves are real. Or rather, they used to be real. Back in the last ice age, there were enormous wolves then used to hunt bison and other massive animals, sometimes even small mammoths. However, just like the woolly mammoth and the saber-toothed tiger, dire wolves went extinct several thousand years ago. But yes, they existed. And in the south of Oregon, there is one breeder who has spent the last 30 years of his life trying to recreate the ancient dire wolf. He calls the breed American Alsatian, and the puppies are extremely adorable. They grow to be tall and broad with golden eyes and very wolfish features. The man who breeds these animals is really hoping that with more time they can grow in size and look more like the wolves from thousands of years ago. It would be about 10,000 years ago that the last dire wolf died out. Whether or not he can recreate an actual dire wolf is yet to be seen. Thanks for watching. Which of these wolves is the most unbelievable? Which one did you like the most? Tell me in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. From birds that would kill you with a single kick to stalkers that will harass you all the way home, here are the 10 most dangerous birds on Earth. Great horned owl. Owls are some of the most mysterious feathered animals in the world. They're comical, they are sometimes adorable, and they do that weird swivel thing with their head that chills the blood. But owls are also fierce and vicious, specifically the great horned owl. And yes, these owls attack people. The most common time a great horned owl is going to attack a person is when they are defending their young. This can happen when an unsuspecting jogger or hiker comes too close for the owl's comfort. If the owl feels in danger, it will strike. Luckily, there are almost no deaths that occur from owl attacks, but the attacks still happen. Owls much prefer to hunt small rodents and other small birds than attack humans, and so you should keep your dogs and cats close if you live in a wooded area that has a lot of great horned owls. This horned owl's strong claws require a force of 28 pounds, 13 kilograms, to open. Owls use their deadly grip to slice the spine of their prey. It's terrifying. They have been known to steal small dogs, and they have a clutch force of about 500 psi with their talons. This is a great enough force to disfigure, to blind, and definitely to fly away with your chihuahua. Most owls are stronger than most hawks, which is not something everybody knows. Australian magpie. The Australian magpie is famous for being the most bothersome bird in the country. They are infamous for attacking cyclists, for swooping at people who happen to be walking too close to where they place their nest, and for being generally annoying. People typically refer to the Australian magpie as the most psychotic bird on Earth. It does not have sharp talons that could kill a person, and it doesn't have enough brass to poke you in the eye with its beak, but it is still extremely dangerous. Magpies are dangerous because of what happens when an annoying bird begins flapping around your head. They can cause cyclists to get into accidents, they can cause people to lose control of their bicycle and throw them into traffic, or they can cause you to fall and hurt yourself. What's interesting is the extremes people have gone through to keep magpies away from them. Some people wear wide-brimmed hats, while others carry umbrellas, and when it comes to cyclists, some people have installed spikes on their helmets to try and keep the lunatic magpies away from them. Although some people think they are very attractive birds and very often make friends with whoever provides them with food, relationships can go in the opposite direction. One man claimed that for 25 years he had been attacked by the same magpie. It's too long to have an enemy of this level. Have you ever been attacked by a magpie? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Lammergeier. This is the lammergeier, also known as the bearded vulture. Not only does this bird look dangerous and vile, but it absolutely is. This is the scariest looking bird flying through the skies today. It looks like a prehistoric eagle. The bearded vulture has a wingspan of roughly 10 feet, 3 meters. It lives in mountainous regions from Central Asia to Spain, and it eats mainly carrion. In fact, the bearded vulture loves scavenging. A huge portion of its diet is marrow, about 90% of it. The classic trait of the bearded vulture is to pick up bones, turtles, and other hard meals and drop them from high in the sky, breaking them open on rocks so that they can get at the marrow. And this is where they end up being dangerous. The bird may not attack you itself, despite its terrifying appearance, but it could drop a tortoise on you from 260 feet in the sky. And you can bet that is going to leave a pretty nasty bruise. This is especially true if you happen to be bald and the vulture mistakes your head for a rock. Red-tailed hawk. The red-tailed hawk is a relatively common bird found widely distributed across North America. They weigh very little for such large birds, only between 2 and 4 pounds, with a wingspan that can be up to 56 inches, 140 centimeters. Unlike other birds that fly around looking for prey, the red-tailed hawk generally hunts from a perch. This means it sits somewhere and watches for its next meal, then swoops down to take it. This hawk can see 8 times better than you, and it can see color in the ultraviolet range. It basically has a cyborg's eyes. Fortunately, this popular hawk is not the most dangerous bird in the world, unless perhaps you get between it and its food. The people most at risk from these hawks are their trainers, as a red-tailed hawk has a grip strength of about 200 psi. That's 4 times what your grip strength is, and very close to the bite of a big dog. This is why trainers wear big, heavy-duty gloves when dealing with red-tailed hawks. White swan. Swans are incredibly dangerous animals. These birds are big, weighing up to nearly 30 pounds, and they have a surprising amount of power. However, these birds do not generally kill human beings. You are more likely to suffer a swan attacking your dog or child than attacking you. The males are fierce in defense of their nests, especially during the spring nesting season from April to June, and this is something you always need to keep in mind when visiting any public park with swans. These birds are huge and can be seriously bad-tempered. Take the case of a 37-year-old man who was murdered by a swan back in 2012 outside of Chicago. According to the BBC, the man was tending to the birds when one of the swans charged his small boat, capsized it, and inadvertently caused the man to drown. Eyewitnesses told the investigators that the swan actively hindered the man from reaching safety and watched sadistically as he drowned. So, you tell me, are swans dangerous evil villains or innocent bystanders? Crowned eagle. Did you know that primitive humanity was on the menu of the crowned eagles? According to CBS News, there is an extremely ancient fossil of a primitive human child who appears to have died when attacked by a crowned eagle. There are markings around the eye sockets of the ancient skull that suggest an eagle got a hold of it and ate it for dinner. Eagles are the most majestic birds in the world, and while most North Americans are familiar with the symbolic bald eagle, there are dozens of different types of eagles all over the world. Today, we are talking about the crowned eagle, which is often referred to as the leopard of the air. These birds come from Africa, and they are one of the deadliest species of eagle in existence. In terms of this incredible bird's diet, it eats about 90% of mammals. That means only 10% of its diet is made up of something other than monkeys and deer. There are even rumors that children's skulls have been found in the nests of crowned eagles, kinda like how in North America we often find dog collars and cat collars in abandoned eagle nests. Well, I'll just say that if we ever got her in front of us, we'd better run. Emu. The emu is not the most dangerous flightless bird, it is not the heaviest, and it is not the tallest. However, the emu is the ugliest. There is nothing more unnerving than looking into the beady orange eyes of an ornery emu, and while they are the least threatening of the 3 giant flightless birds on Earth, emus are still pretty dangerous. They can run at about 30 miles, 50 kilometers per hour, and kick with massive feet that can do some serious damage to a human being. especially if one of their claws digs into your belly. Emus are capable of basically dissecting animals without any effort. Human fatalities via emus are indeed extremely rare, but emu attacks are not. These annoying birds are so cranky they will attack anyone, and who can blame them? Most emus are taller than most humans, and the common emu is the only survivor of several different emu species, all of which were exterminated by settlers hundreds of years ago. If humans wiped out your ancestors, you would be cranky too. Ostrich. There is almost nothing more terrifying in the world than a rampaging ostrich. If you thought a cassowary or an emu was big, ostriches can grow to be 9 feet, 3 meters tall, and over 300 pounds, 140 kilograms. Imagine the strongest person you know with a bad attitude, then add an extra 2 feet and a beak that could rip your face off. Now imagine that same person can run 43 miles an hour, 70 kilometers an hour. That's an ostrich. The ostrich is not an animal you want to mess with. They are incredibly territorial when defending their young, and they are even strong enough to kill a lion. While the lion may be the king of the jungle, it wouldn't stand much of a chance against a rampaging ostrich kicking it square in the face. A fun bit of trivia for you, the famous singer Johnny Cash actually used to own an ostrich of particularly bad temperament, and according to Cash, he once got in a scuffle with the ostrich, which kicked him in the abdomen. If it weren't for the ostrich's claw getting caught on Cash's belt buckle, he likely would have died, and that would have been a tragic way to go. Giant petrel. Forget about sharks and tigers, these birds are straight up savages. One of the last birds you ever want to be attacked by is a giant petrel, and despite this bird's absolute ferocity, you probably had no idea it even existed. These are serious killers, and there are 2 different species of giant petrel competing to be the most feared bird of Antarctica. You have the northern giant petrel and the southern giant petrel, and even though they are different species, they are both horrific murderers, and they both like to prey on the animals in Antarctica in the winter. For these birds to have survived for so long, they developed an incredibly aggressive style of feeding that makes them unbelievably dangerous. These are not only relentless scavengers, but they will kill other birds like albatrosses. They will eat penguins, snatch baby animals, and fly off with them, and there is even some pretty disturbing footage of a nasty giant petrel sticking its whole head through a sea lion's eye socket to get at its brain. That is some seriously nasty stuff. You can recognize these birds as they always appear to be drenched in blood from the tip of their beak down to the front of their whole body. They really look like something out of a horror movie, of course being the murderer. Cassowary. This is probably the one you have all been waiting for. The cassowary has long been crowned the most dangerous bird in the entire world. In fact, as recently as April of 2019, a man was attacked in Florida and later died in a hospital from serious injuries because of a cranky cassowary. This is according to Guinness World Records, and they are no stranger to the deadliest animals in the world. And while we're talking about Florida, you may be surprised to know that cassowaries are listed as Class 2 wildlife, which is in the same category as alligators and some wild cats. That's how dangerous these monstrous birds are. There are 3 different species of cassowary, and all of them are native to the tropical forests of Australia and Southeast Asia. Regardless of the exact breed of cassowary, you can bet the bird is going to be huge. They have a maximum height of nearly 7 feet, 2 meters, and can weigh up to 130 pounds, 59 kilograms. But what makes them so dangerous is their muscular legs and incredibly sharp claws. A single cassowary foot can send you straight to the hospital with a bad case of death. From courageous kitties traveling thousands of miles to expensive horses running away, here are 10 pets that returned home after being lost. Basile. This horse made the news after an accident during an endurance race in Suffolk, England last year. When the rider of the then 12-year-old grey gelding fell from the saddle, the animal struck out on its own. The name of the horse is Basile del Mulo. We think that sounds like a character from Zoolander, but never mind. He fled into the forest and disappeared for 33 hours. A major search operation was launched, which even included the RAF, police, and numerous helpers, even a drone. Basile was found in Thetford Forest, where people had been checking out hundreds of miles of terrain in an attempt to get him back. After much worry, the crazy clip-clopper was spotted and returned to his family. His owner was pretty relieved and surprised that he was uninjured after running through the forest. He apparently found a reservoir and some fresh grass, but they couldn't follow his footprints. His great escape actually made him quite famous. Following the incident at the King's Forest Spring Ride, you'd think Basile would be put off of racing. However, just weeks later, he was back on his hooves in an international endurance ride. He came 19th in the epic event at Royal Windsor, a stone's throw from Her Majesty the Queen. Give that horse a crown. Giggle Blizzard. A Florida feline went on an arduous journey in 2009. When Giggle Blizzard, and yes, that is his real name, disappeared, it left a hole in his owner's life. Not that she was short of animals, owning at the time an incredible 7 other cats plus a couple of canines for good measure. Still, this was clearly one special little furball. Reportedly, Giggle Blizzard was going for walks with dogs, so he's one tough cookie it seems, and he'd have to be, bearing in mind what happened. One day, his owner called everybody back home after letting them out, and he never came back. She searched all over the neighborhood and put an ad on Craigslist, but no news. After 11 days, with his owner no doubt going out of her mind with worry, he rocked up on her porch. It was Thanksgiving night, and she had a lot to be thankful for. So what took place over that agonizing week-and-a-half period? Poor Giggle Blizzard was involved in a nasty car accident where his back legs got squashed. I won't get into the details, but he dragged himself all the way home and after some operations lived to chase mice another day. At one point, his owner thought he'd been eaten by a vulture after seeing one with a whisker sticking out of its beak. Crazy stuff, sure, but we're pretty positive that Giggle Blizzard would have seen off such a feathery predator, no bother. The veterinary surgeon was able to save his legs, and Giggle Blizzard is quite the story of perseverance. Has anything ever happened to your cat? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you are new here. Reckless. This doggy tale is like something out of a movie. Prepare to go aww for the moving story of Reckless, the terrier pit bull. It opens with a dramatic scene in which New Jersey canine Reckless flees the family backyard during Superstorm Sandy in 2012. After months of looking, they made the painful decision to call off the search. Of course, it was only a matter of time before they figured a new dog might help mend their broken hearts. Enough time had passed, and really you've got to move on with these things, right? But when they went to the local animal shelter to pick one out in 2014, they found their perfect replacement, Reckless himself. Their home had been devastated by the storm all that time ago, but surely the most shattering thing was losing their precious pet. Having Reckless back in the family must have been a huge relief. Mother Nature sure does work in some mysterious ways. Hampshire horse. As you know, England loves its horses. We just talked about one 4-legged friend who ran into the forest. Here's another case where endurance racing and horses did not mix. The location this time is Leafy, Hampshire, and something called the Three Rivers Ride last year. Here's another horse that went missing. It happened on a Sunday morning when horse and rider reportedly had an unexpected parting of the ways. The mare was colored black and 10 years old enough to know better maybe. She also had what's described in the press as a white star, clearly one handsome-looking horse. The rider reported that the horse went missing at 11 a.m., but she was very distressed and asked not to be named. Anxious equine hunters didn't have long to wait, as the missing animal turned up 24 hours later at a nearby car park. Wonder if she got a ticket. Joking aside, there was a big search underway for this rogue pet, and people were understandably upset. It all worked out right in the end though, with nay problems. See what we did there? The horse was unharmed and luckily made it back with injury. Kuzya. Just when you think you've seen the toughest kitty on the block, another one comes along to shatter your purring preconceptions. Kuzya is a Russian cat who got lost after his owners lost him while on holiday. Yep, you're traveling over 1,000 miles to a different part of the country, why not take the cat along, huh? Kuzya was mislaid in Alenyak, and eventually his heartbroken family had to go back to Yakutsk and leave him behind. Or so they thought. Kuzya wasn't going to let a little thing like being stranded miles from home stand in his way. This incredible feline found his way to the doorstep. To do this, he had to cross the wilds of Siberia. We've heard of the scenic route, but that's ridiculous. He was underweight, with no claws to speak of, and someone or something had tried chowing down on his tail. Aside from that, he seemed alright. No wonder he received the nickname Kuzya the Destroyer. That's one kitty with claws, or rather a cat without claws, but give him a break, he was lost in Siberia. Manuela. Let's slow things down for our next pick. Right down, in fact, because we're talking about a tortoise. While these don't look like the most exciting of creatures, there are some extraordinary facts about them. Take Manuela, for example, from Rio de Janeiro. She vanished for an astonishing 30 years, but it turned out she was closer to home than first thought. When building work was happening at the family home during the early 80s, it seems the family pet snuck out the door. We're thinking she snuck out very slowly, but anyway, it looked like the tortoise, a red-footed tortoise, had gone for good. Then all those years later, the trash was put out, including a wooden box from the shed. To people's amazement, they realized Manuela was inside. Apparently, she'd been living in the box next to a record player over the decades. How did she get there? No one knows. And how in the half shell did she survive? Again, it's a mystery. The best guess is there were insects to munch and something to wash them down with in the form of condensation. Yuck. Luckily, redfoots eat a whole bunch of stuff, so Manuela wasn't picky. It's known that some tortoises can go for a couple of years or so without a meal. They have fat reserves to draw on, probably because of their sedentary lifestyle. Whichever way it happened, Manuela made it home. Not that she ever left. Talk about leading a sheltered life. Nigel. Next on our list is Nigel, which sounds like a weird name to give your pet. What type of creature is Nigel? A parrot. Okay, getting weirder. But it takes all sorts to make a world. Nigel is on our list because he flew far from home, but also for another reason. Guess what? It's a pretty weird reason. In 2014, Nigel, who's an African gray parrot, was returned to his owner, a British guy living in California. Nigel had been found fluttering around, and a vet managed to ID him by his microchip. His owner was really happy because his precious pet had been gone an amazing 4 years. That's weird, but the really strange part is that Nigel speaks with a British accent. However, keep watching. There's a twist in the tale. When Nigel came home and opened his beak, a whole load of Spanish came out. It was then that the owner discovered where Nigel had been all this time. He'd been living with an elderly couple where he'd learned the language from a Guatemalan grandfather. He and the parrot were close, forming a bond following the death of his wife. Nigel's former owner decided it was best for him to return to his other home, waving farewell to his feathered friend. Sad, but also heartwarming. Aww. Or should that be caw? Petunia. Here's a real head scratcher from 2011. When Petunia the dog was found mixing with the local wildlife near Sacramento, California, she was taken to an animal shelter. They checked her over, saw she had a chip, and looked up her details. The chip revealed the address of Petunia's veterinary clinic. So far, so normal, huh? But there's a twist. The clinic was in Fredericksburg, North Virginia. Petunia's family were pleased to see her. In fact, they were delighted. You see, Petunia had been missing for 8 years. During that time, the beloved pet managed to travel nearly 3,000 miles across states. What happened? Did Petunia decide to go walking around the country like a littlest hobo type of situation? Did someone snatch her and she escaped? Was she abducted by aliens? If only Petunia could talk, then we'd get the lowdown on her incredible journey. Opie. Saddle up for another tale of horsing around. Well, actually, this is quite serious, but don't worry, there's a happy ending. It all started when a lady in Texas went into a hospital for back surgery. Her father agreed to look after her saddlebred pinto horse, Opie, in the meantime. Unfortunately, the horse was stolen, and the family left devastated. A group called Stolen Horse International were hired to look for any suspicious hoof prints. Years went by and all hope seemed lost. Then, a whole decade later, Opie turned up again. But where had he been? He was noticed by someone trying to buy a horse who realized the stallion they were interested in wasn't a regular animal but someone's missing four-legged friend. Opie's rightful owner had moved state to Arkansas and reportedly drove all night to be reunited with her pet. Amazingly, the horse recognized her after all this time. As for who stole Opie, no one knows. The person selling him was in the dark, but mention was made of a mysterious pastor who picked him up by the side of the road. We're thinking that pastor was really a horse rustler, right? Yosuke. We mentioned an African gray parrot earlier. Well, now we're introducing you to another one. How come? 'Cause this is no ordinary parrot. Meet Yosuke, from the Japanese city of Nagareyama. As a pet living in the city, you've got to keep your wits around you, and Yosuke certainly did that after he got lost. Actually, he had a lot to say for himself. Like many parrots, Yosuke was an articulate little feathered fellow. Law enforcement discovered the amazing bird on a roof and brought him down to the station for a cracker. When the vet was called in, Yosuke reportedly announced himself as Mr. Yosuke Nakamura. Not only that, but he had his home address to hand, or rather to wing. This clever creature was then returned to his comfy cage with the Nakamuras. How did he know to say his name and address to the vet? Surely Yosuke is the brainiest bird in Japan, and indeed the whole list. From underwater mythological monsters to giant animals with enormous tentacles, here are 10 of the scariest sea monsters alive today. Is there anything as terrifying as a lizard fish? These freakish monsters of the deep are miniature, only reaching about 27.5 inches, which is 70 centimeters in length, and owning a cylindrical body. But they are terrifying, and their mouths are big enough to chomp down on your leg or foot no problem. Just take a look at these long, slender, lizard-like fish predators. Yuck. They hang around on the ocean floor about 11,482 feet, that's 3,500 meters, deep in the tropical zone, with their noses tilted upwards waiting for something yummy to swim by. Then they strike with a mouthful of multiple series of sharp, needle-like teeth that they use to perforate their prey. They usually feed on crustacean and mollusk, but they won't hesitate to eat any other things, including their own kind. These sea monsters are some of the weirdest deep-sea predators, and they have eyes that are so black they appear hollow. This is mostly because the zones in which the deep-sea lizardfish lives receives less than 1% of the sunlight from above. Just about everything that lives down there is equally as creepy and nightmarish as the lizardfish. What is the scariest fish you have ever seen? Let me know in the comments below. Bucktooth ghost shark. A brand new breed of sea monster was discovered in 2017, according to a report by Live Science. This mutant-looking shark is one of the meanest and weirdest underwater sea creatures ever, and it sure is ugly. Not just ugly, but utterly scary. It is the 50th ghost shark species ever discovered, but it might be the worst. It actually looks like it has buck teeth, which is why they call it the bucktooth ghost shark. Its teeth look oddly like rabbit teeth, and its weird fat head looks strangely human. This particular ghost shark can grow up to be about 3 feet, 1 meter in length, and swims by moving its tail so that it appears to fly underneath the water. Interestingly enough, ghost sharks are not actual sharks. They are relatives of rays and sharks, but are considered cartilaginous fish. Whatever they are, it is probably something you don't want to meet. Goblin shark. Goblin sharks are simply terrifying. Not only do they look like underwater goblins with disgusting pointy teeth, loose gray flesh, and a sharp goblin nose, but even the way they eat is terrifying. Goblin sharks are able to thrust their jaws exactly 3 inches, 8 centimeters forward in order to catch their prey. Their jaws literally shoot out of their mouths to snatch unsuspecting fish from the water so that they can gobble them down. The only good news is that goblin fish live at the very bottom of the ocean where they belong. Considering goblin sharks are able to grow 12 feet in length and weigh around 460 pounds, it is a very good thing they live far away from us underneath the waves. In fact, these horrifying oceanic nightmares are generally spotted off the coast of Japan. They even got their name because of how much they look like the spooky goblins from Japanese folklore. Some people say that goblin sharks look like an underwater mutant from space, like it doesn't even belong in this world. It is so horrifyingly ugly, and definitely this is terrifying. And because of that, it is one of the scariest sea monsters of the world. Giant squid. Giant squids are the things of nightmares. These massive deep water ocean beasts are some of the most frightening animals alive today. With their blood-red skin, their 2 powerful tentacles and 8 arms, and their massive eyeballs, these are not something you want to meet on your next excursion to the beach. Much like their close relative, the colossal squid, the giant squid has the largest eyeballs out of any animal on Earth. Their eyes are approximately 10 inches, 27 centimeters in diameter. To put that in comparison, a common adult face is about 8 to 9 inches, 20 to 23 centimeters in diameter. Imagine an eyeball the size of your face staring at you from the dark murk of the sea. According to National Geographic, giant squid need their eyeballs to be so big because they use them to detect objects in the dark depths where most animals would not be able to see a thing. While the general makeup of a giant squid is scary enough, the fact that they can grow to be over 59 feet, 18 meters, is the really terrifying part. 59 feet, 18 meters, is longer than most boats. Also, they are so strong that they have had many fights against sharks and big whales. Even though they base their diet on fish, small whales, shrimps, and other squids, these enigmatic predators could easily wrap you in one of their tentacles and slurp you into its gross squid mouth. If that doesn't inspire nightmares, I don't know what does. These beasts are so elusive that the first image ever taken of one was in 2004 when Japanese researchers found a living giant squid in the ocean. Moray eel. Moray eels are far from cuddly. These terrifying fish live inside the cracks and crevices of reefs, preying on anything they can get their sharp teeth onto. These monstrous ocean fish will feast on anything from octopus to other fish, and they are not afraid to bite you if you impose upon their territory. Some people may think moray eels are interesting, but there is no denying their nightmarish qualities. Just look into the mouth of a moray eel. You will find a cavern of pointed fangs that they use to bite, and two powerful jaws that they use to take the prey into their mouths and chew them. These things look like a terrible mix between a venomous snake and the world's ugliest tadpole. Not only do moray eels look scary, but they kinda look mean. There's an almost savage look in the eyes of a moray eel. No matter how colorful or pretty they may appear swishing their snaky bodies through the ocean, I promise they are evil. Moray eels even swim with their mouths completely open, as that is how they breathe, passing water through their mouth and past their gills. This is problematic for unsuspecting squid or cuttlefish, as the moray eel can lunge and bite in a split second. I mean, come on. Their mouths are literally open all of the time. It's like walking around with your fists up looking for a fight. Great white shark. Great white sharks are really the terrors of the ocean. No other sea creature inspired quite so much dread as the massive great white shark. They don't even look like they belong on this planet. With their pointy fins and their white bellies, their black, soulless eyes, excellent smell sense, and their rows of incredibly 300+ sharp teeth, they make your skin crawl just thinking about them. There's no animal on Earth more synonymous with fear in the ocean than the great white shark. And why would there be? These things grow to be almost the size of a bus, 15 to 20 feet, 4 to 6 meters, weighing up to 5,000 pounds, 2,267 kilograms. Interestingly enough, even though great white sharks look like horrifying monsters, they are not actually mindless killing machines. There are around 100 shark attacks every year worldwide, but only between a third and half are from great white sharks. Plus, most are not even fatal. According to National Geographic, scientists believe great white sharks are not even trying to kill humans. When they attack, they are merely sampling by biting a little bit. The sharks only nibble on humans and then release them, realizing that they aren't the best food. They prefer some seals, sea lions, turtles, or little whales. Apparently, we are not even a food item on the menu of the great white shark. Have you ever swam near a shark? How was the experience? Let me know in the comments below, and if you are new here, be sure to subscribe. Giant Pacific octopus. It is hard to decide which sea monster is more terrifying, the giant Pacific octopus or the giant squid. While the squid is way larger and has an eyeball the size of my head, there is something supernaturally unnerving about watching the giant Pacific octopus wriggle its way through the ocean. Its fat red head, 8 boneless arms, hundreds of gross suction cups, and oddly feline eyes all combine to make the giant Pacific octopus an underwater freak of a monster. Maybe the thing that makes an octopus so terrifying is the fact that it can easily enfold you in its 8 squishy arms and then slurp you with its suction cups. The common Pacific octopus size is from 10 to 16 feet, that's 3 to 5 meters, and it can weigh from 22 to 110 pounds, that's 10 to 50 kilograms. But a group of researchers reported the largest individual recorded weight of 600 pounds, 272 kilograms, and measured 30 feet, 9 meters across in length. Just thinking about it makes me nauseous. Imagine a 30-foot mass of gelatin that weighs 600 pounds wrapping its underwater spider legs around you, because that is basically what an octopus is, an underwater spider without bones, like a melted tarantula. That being said, the giant Pacific octopus is pretty cool considering it can change color and texture to blend in with its surroundings. This is one of the only animals that has incredible natural camouflage, which makes him another of the scariest monsters living in the sea. Viperfish. This sea monster is not very large. In fact, the viperfish only grows to be about 1 foot, 12 inches in length. But it is an absolute terror. Just the teeth alone on the viperfish are enough to make me squeal and swim in the other direction. Their teeth are unusually large that they don't entirely fit into their mouths, and they are able to impale fish just by moving their heads. Their teeth are curved and remind me a lot of the fangs on a pit viper. These creatures have undoubtedly the most foul-looking mouths you have ever seen on a fish. Their jaws are massive, and interestingly enough, their stomachs are equally oversized so they can stockpile food in their bellies, and their bodies can modify to receive huge prey, and go for days without eating. The good news is that these underwater vipers live roughly 5,000 feet, 1,524 meters, 1.5 kilometers, below the surface of the ocean. However, stay aware. At night, they have been known to travel up into shallow waters to search for food. The last thing you want when skinny dipping at the beach is to meet a hungry viperfish. One of its fangs could easily stick all the way through your hand, so be careful with the nights at the beach. Frilled shark. What is it about sharks that is so inherently terrifying? The great white shark is scary for its size and its raw animal power, but this shark, the frilled shark, is a whole different sea monster of its own. This shark is a monstrosity, and these are the last of an ancient family of sharks which date all the way back to the Jurassic period. Whereas a great white will charge at its prey and clamp down its teeth, the frilled shark floats silently and eerily in the water, then it coils its body like a spring or a snake and lashes out suddenly to surprise a poor and unfortunate fish. Frilled sharks have roughly 300 barbed fangs inside of their mouths. These things are nasty. Their teeth face inward like hooks, so once this beastly sea monster gets its mouth on you, there is no getting away. Scientists think the frilled shark uses its teeth to lure fish directly into its mouth, because its body is nearly invisible in the water, but its teeth are bright white. Fish and squid are easily lured directly into its hungry jaws, and by the time they've realized their error, it is too late for them to make an escape. Blue whale. Though not a terrifying sea monster, the blue whale is definitely the closest living animal that fits the description of a true sea monster. It is simply massive and owns the title of the biggest animal on the planet. Not only the biggest animal in the sea, but the biggest animal on the entire planet. Blue whales can weigh as much as 200 tons. That is roughly the same weight of 33 elephants. Also, its stomach can hold 1 ton of krill, and this giant animal needs to eat about 4 tons of krill each day. According to the WWF, a blue whale's heart is the same size as a Volkswagen Beetle. Even if you already knew how huge these beasts are, what you might not know is that blue whales are also the loudest creatures in the world. Their call is louder than the output of a jet engine, reaching an astounding 188 decibels. For comparison, a jet engine only reaches 140 decibels. When you think about sea monsters like an ancient underwater dinosaur that was hundreds of feet long and weighed hundreds of tons, the closest living specimen is definitely the blue whale. There is no denying the boggling size of this modern-day sea monster. Thanks for watching. Which of these sea monsters do you find the most terrifying? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notifications bell. See you next time.